Folks, we just went through 5 days in the grinder. PCA New Orleans. We were all through the city. We were through and we did events through Bourbon Street. We did events at hotels. We were all over the place. I'll be honest, I don't think Sean slept in 4 of the days. He was the Energizer Bunny. It was just fun to watch. But we went through the entire show, and you're looking, and this was one of the smaller shows I've been to. This was only about 450,000 square feet. The big ones used to be 700,000 to 800,000 square feet. But I'll give you a hint, I had no problem getting in my 30,000 steps every day. It's good to be home and it's good to be sitting down again. And what Sean really sat there and tasked me for at the PCA, besides doing some things for burn rate, was to go in and look at all the booths and go in depth and pick my top 10. So what you're gonna get, great shout out to everyone that was at PCA. I mean, all of the vendors, all of the manufacturers. It was phenomenal to see everyone there. I got to run into some old friends and give lots of hugs. Before we get into our top 10, let's throw out some honorable mentions because, as I said, there were so many amazing booths there. It was really difficult for me to narrow everything down. But one of the first honorable mentions I'm going to go is going to be Alatus. And it's a very white, very clean, almost sanitary style booth. But what they did do this year is they had the display for the new Romeo Juliet 150th anniversary. And the display in the box, the way they did the lighting to it, they put it in its own separate little room, really set the cigars off and let you know that you were looking at something that was very special. And they really did a great job and a very wonderful honorable mention. Another one I want to talk about is Tuscano. Now, not a lot of you are probably Tuscano smokers, but it is the #1 dry cured cigar in the world. And it is a phenomenal stick if that's your style that you're into. But the booth one, they had a wonderful roller that was in there, and their biggest thing they were pushing this year was their fire cured tobacco. And they actually had the tobacco leaves hanging in small little flames coming through, not actual flames, but kind of a mock-up flame coming through, and it really set the booth off, and it was something that drew your eye as you were walking in. And they definitely also make an honorable mention. The last one I'm going to mention is, and again, it was tough to keep them out because they are friends of mine and I've known them for a long time, is Laora. I do miss now that they were sitting there serving rum this year. Since they got rid of Presidente and sold that out, they no longer have the beer cooler, which we all used to look forward to at the end of the day. But it's just a nice, clean booth. And the way they displayed everything, especially the Perfettios, and just with the tubes and the way they displayed the colors and everything else, it just made the booth pop. It was real close, but it just didn't make it, but it definitely gets an honorable mention. And now let's go into the 10 that I thought were the best booths of the show. Number 10 goes Dobinoff. Very nice booth. Typical Dobinoff, upscale. It only came in at 10. It was a little bit busy to how their separation was, but they had all of the different brands of cigars from Zeno to Baccarat to the white label Dobinoff and their high-end limited. It was just a wonderful booth. It was a wonderful presentation. Their staff was all over the place. They were very attentive. I think you'll really enjoy the interviews when you get to see them. Going to number 9, I picked Perdomo. Perdomo is actually one of the smaller booths for a manufacturer as big as Perdomo. You really expect a little bit more of it. They've sized down over the years because it does get really expensive to sit there and display at PCA. But the biggest thing this year, and part of the reason they had it, was the display system that they use. And they use a stacked display system for all of their cigars. And Nick put tens of thousands of dollars with consultants and everything else to go in to figure how to best present his cigar and best practices for the retailer. And it's made every retailer I know that's done it more money in that cigar line. And a lot of them now do it with everybody else's cigars. The other thing that was a huge hit for me, yes, for full disclosure, they are acquaintances of mine. I've known them for years. But Nikki just came out with their collaboration cigar that he pretty much was behind for the anniversary, as he's starting to step in to fill more of his dad's shoes. And it was just fantastic to see him around his booth and the joy he had, which is really where he got the rating from me for the booth. Just the joy he had going around the booth and explaining his new cigar. Now, going to 8, we move to Oliva. Oliva always has a classic booth. The main center of their booth, again, you'll see all of the film as it comes out and it finally gets edited. I don't know how many hours we have of it. But their center booth is 3 TVs, which we happen to be, for the first time in my life, at a PCA show during the Masters. So I was not sitting in my chair on the weekend with a mint julep in my hand watching the Masters. I was getting bits and pieces as I was going through. They had the Masters on all 3 screens, which was really cool for everybody going through. After the Masters was over on Monday, they went back and they have shot a beautiful set of videos to go through their factory and fields that plays on a loop over those screens. The corners were set up with all of the cigars for the different varietals, going everything through the G to the O to the Melanio, and everything back through in their limited edition stuff. It was just a very classic and very clean setup, and that's why they got the number 8 rating. Coming in at number 7 was United Cigars booth for the Adabay line. Now, the Adabay line, if you haven't ever smoked it before, is one of the uber premiums. These are along the lines of Dobinoff. But the way that they're manufactured and the way that they're done, they're just incredible cigars. If you get a chance, you definitely do want to try one. It's probably not anything we will rate anytime soon, but it's just an incredible cigar. The booth was European chic. It was all white. They had a nice seating area inside. They had 4 different methods of getting in. Everything was lined up both on the inside and on the outside, so you could walk by and experience the cigars. It was more of an experience booth than it was more for a selling booth, although I'm sure they did wonderful in their sales. And Oliver was so nice to sit there and take our crew around. And again, when this comes out, you'll get to see all these booths. And I think you'll really enjoy just the clean European lines that you'll see with this booth. At number 6 was Rocky Patel. What really set this booth off, it's a standard booth, and it's basically a single pylon for each of the individual lines spread throughout the booth. The booth probably covers 5,000 feet. It is an incredible the way that everything's laid out. They keep a bar in there for their customers and also all the attendees. They took really good care of us. What really set them up and put them in this position, though, is Rocky every year brings in entertainment. And the young gentleman that he had this year as a singer, it was kind of his own karaoke deal. But the range that this young man had, and I hope we have it on film someplace, is one of the best voices I've heard in the last 20 plus years. And the way everything was set up, it was just clean, it was crisp. You could go to each different pylon and you could see exactly what the line was that was in each one. Presentation was wonderful, and he did come out with some new boxing and some new packaging as well that I think you'll enjoy seeing. Coming in at number 5 was Placencia Cigars. Now, Placencia is kind of a cool story, and I can go back years ago. Their booth might have been the size of the area that you see us on Burn Rate use when we do Pool Talk. They were generally a manufacturer. They came out with a couple of small lines of their own about 10, 12 years ago. The booth now has expanded into this gorgeous setting with a full coffee bar, with all of their staff in there. And this year they brought in a new cigar, and we do have the presentation. You'll get to see that. And they actually brought it out from the ceiling to bring it down. The presentation and how they marketed everything in that booth was absolutely incredible. And we did get a few cigars from them that I'm really looking forward to, hopefully in the next season, that you'll see on Burn Rate when we rate these cigars. They've really come a long way, and the booth now, the one they're using, just looked absolutely spectacular. Coming in at number 4 was the Fuente Newman family, otherwise, as most of you know, is Cigar Family. The Fuente booth, besides the new stuff that you're going to see coming out, especially in the Pink series and some new limited releases, it's just a clean, sharp booth. And then on the Newman side, you have the factory here that we're about 12 blocks from, where I sit right now, that they did all in cardboard at a 1/10 scale model that also holds a small museum for the Newman family, tracing them all the way back to the late 1800s in Cleveland, Ohio, to when they came down to Tampa. And it's just a phenomenal presentation going through, and they were so wonderful and helpful. Some of you, if you've got lucky to see the interview I was able to do with Jeremiah Mearfall, who provides Fuente with all of their Cameroon tobacco. We actually shot that. They were kind enough to let us use their booth to shoot that interview with. So at 4, it's just a spectacular presentation, and if you get a chance and see it set up someplace, I think you'll really enjoy looking through it. Coming in at number 3, and always in my top 5, is Drew Estate. Most of you probably know Drew Estates for the acids. Some of the rest of you know them for Liga Privada. They present everything in the most unique way of any vendor at PCA. It's kind of a cross between cigars and Grateful Dead. The colors, the swirls. They have a second floor that's a seating area that they use. They have second floor offices. They have things everywhere. They had 2 artists in the booth. They, of course, had Matty sitting there, and God knows what costumes he came up with every day. Apparently, he's raided my closet for some of them because they were as loud as I am. And it's just a fun booth with the music they play and everything that goes through. It's just a fun, enjoyable booth, and they've got a great staff, and they put it all forward again at this PCA. At number 2 was a booth that I really was surprised at, and that was El Septimo. And El Septimo this year, and they're basically a European company, and it's a high-end boutique cigar, low production rate. But for this show, they had 2 Fabergé eggs recreated that held their cigars and their new line that came out. $21 million. And no, I didn't misspeak. $21 million. We're talking 2 jewel-encrusted eggs, probably almost 2 foot tall by 1 foot wide, that were just absolutely spectacular. The Tsar of Russia would have approved. And it was just an absolutely phenomenal centerpiece that drew everyone into that booth. And that's why it got my number 2 rating, because it was over the top in opulence. And I think you're really gonna dig it when you get to see it. Number 1 is something you'd never really expect, especially from me. I'm one of the old school guys. I like to see, as we talk Placencia and that, as they get up and move further up the food chain and things along those lines, was a brand new company called Mayflower Cigars. And basically what you did is you stepped onto the Mayflower. We're talking the deck, the main wheel, the sails, the rigging. It was just an absolute spectacular presentation, especially for a brand new cigar company. And we've got a lot of film with them that you're gonna see going in, and they have got a fantastic story of how all of this began. And I'm not gonna spoil that because you'll get to see that in the film later on, probably somewhere during the next season. But it just was such an incredible presentation that it drew you to it, and it was different than anything I have ever seen in 20 years of going to PCAs. And that's why they got my number 1 rating. And I think you're really gonna enjoy it when you see and you hear their story. And I think you'll get excited about them as well. Hopefully we'll be rating their cigar here in season 3, and we'll see what happens with that. I'm Chris Kelly. I'm one of the tobacconists on the Burn Rate and the co-host with Brian. And those are my top 10 out of the PCA. I hope you'll enjoy seeing them as much as I did being there. And you're watching this only on Cigar TV.